May 28th, 2025. This is the Citizens Oversight Committee for the SMART. I think we go over to Samantha at this point.
Good afternoon, members of the COC and members of the public. If you're joining us via Zoom and would like to speak during public comment, you can use the raised hand option. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes, and we will start in person with public comments in the room first, and then we will move to comments on Zoom after that. With that, I will take roll call. Member Hagerty.
Here.
Member Johnson. Member Johnson. Roll call.
Here.
Member Larrabee.
Here.
Member McCubbin.
Here.
Member Mann.
Here.
Member Nachor, absent. Member Reyes Diaz.
Here.
Vice Chair Engdahl.
Here.
Chair Sheehan Meyer.
Present.
Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it back to our chair.
Okay, so we're looking for, I hope that everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes that was present. If you were not present, then you have to recuse yourself. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes from
Thank
last
you,
meeting.
Matthew. Second.
I second.
Okay, we got Thomas and Tom, and all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. COC members announcements. Of course, we have our big June 13th gala, I'll call it, ahead of time with the opening of the Windsor Statement, but probably
Yeah.
General Manager's
I
gonna talk
believe
about
this
that.
is our first meeting with Member Johnson. Does maybe you would take a minute to introduce yourself?
Oh, good, sorry.
Okay, I think people could have heard me without that, but okay, that's fine. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Richard Gregory Johnson III, Professor of Public Policy Administration at the University of San Francisco. And I am a resident of Petaluma, California. Been here since 2012, and I'm excited to be part of this council. Thank you.
Welcome. The reason that we are on mics is because it is recorded, and we also have a Zoom audience, and so they might not be able to get the nuances in the room. Should we all introduce ourselves again because Richard's new? I'll start. I'm Danny Sheehan Meyer. I'm your chair for the second time. I'm a friend of SMART, and that's how I spend most of my time. So I come to these meetings and kind of wonky about it, but welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Sure. Matthew Larrabee. I live here in Petaluma. I work in Greenbrae. I take the train a couple days a week is when I can, and love to support it.
Thank you.
Hi, Sandy McCubbin. I live in Healdsburg. Currently retired, but spent my career as a lobbyist specializing in transportation, telecommunications, and energy.
My name is Emma Mann. I'm a resident of Santa Rosa, but I'm a commercial property and business owner in Pengrove. And I also head up the Downtown Merchants Association, and I'm on Zone 2A.
Excuse me, I'm Kevin Haggerty. I reside in San Rafael. I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters in Marin County. I also serve on the Transportation Authority of Marin Community Oversight Committee, as well as the RM3 Independent Oversight Committee.
Tom Engdahl. I live in Novato, and I'm just a member of the Oversight Committee. Nothing special about me.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Jefferson Reyes Diaz. I live over in Novato as well. Still a recent graduate. But besides volunteering for this committee, I also do some volunteer work for Safe Streets Nevada.
Well, welcome, everybody. And I hope that you're all looking forward to paying attention here to the strategic plan, or I mean to the FY 25-26 budget, because this is our job to pay attention and ask questions. And with that, we'll go to the general manager's report.
Hey, good afternoon, Chair and COC members. I have 7 items today. I will go over the ridership report, talk a little bit about ridership recovery, our Smart Connect ridership, talk about our pathway counts, and then highlight some coverage that we recently received on Cron 4, and as well, wanted to talk a little bit about the Bike to Wherever Day. And then the big news, as you mentioned, Chair, Windsor grand opening. And at the end, I'll open it up for questions. Starting off with ridership, our average weekday ridership is where we'll start. April weekday ridership was 3,952. That was 30% over April of 2024. And May average weekday ridership to date is 3,932, and that's 24% over May of 2024. April ridership was 105,831. That's 32% higher than what we saw in April of 2024. And get this, 76% higher than April of 2019, which would have been pre-COVID. So this is a very interesting stat that popped up on us that was very, very surprising. But the big news for the month of April was this was the first month ever for SMART that we carried over 100,000 riders in a month. So that's a big deal for us, a big milestone, something that we're very proud of. Next slide. Here we go. So as many of you know, we go into the budget, we're often conservative of what we think the number ought to be, but I don't roll like that. And I like to set stretch goals. And I really like the big round number of 1 million. It just has a nice ring to it. So we set a stretch goal of 1 million riders in FY25. And I'm happy to report that we are 99% there. As of yesterday, we carried 993,601 riders. Doing the math, we're either going to hit the millionth rider on Thursday or Friday. Not sure it's going to be close, but that is something that we're very, very excited about. It's a huge milestone for us. Also, just wanted to highlight our ridership recovery. Many of you have seen this slide before, but it's very telling because the orange dotted line shows the pre-COVID average, and then you can see our ridership up and down there. Every agency in the country can show you something similar to the left side of this page. Ridership dropped almost nothing in about April of 2020. What most agencies cannot show is that they've been above the pre-COVID average for 23 months. And I can tell you, May ridership is very, very strong. We're once again going to be well above that number. That'll be 2 straight years that we've been above the pre-COVID ridership. So let's put that into perspective. When you compare SMART nationally, this is every commuter rail agency in the country listed, and you can see that there's only, 5 that are even slightly above the pre-COVID ridership. SMART's number 2, second to only Fort Worth. This is in 2024. We've obviously closed that gap in 2025. But anyway, this is just a very interesting way of looking at the data and seeing how we compare to other commuter rails in the country. As you know, Windsor's opening soon. When that happens, we will take our rightful spot at number 1 and continue to pull away from there, I think. Our Smart Connect ridership has also been strong. April total Connect ridership was 1,856. Large increase in the Larkspur Connect ridership, and that's because we went to 7 days a week. You may remember that when we originally started this service, it only ran Thursday through Sunday. Due to popular demand, our board approved going to 7 days a week, and we did that with Giant Season, kickoff of Giant Season, and you can see the huge bump of the Larkspur shuttle, and then the airport shuttle also continues to perform well. Pathway counts have continued to be strong. We carried 98,213 we saw 98,213 trips on our pathway, and that comes from our 14 counters, and that was 46% higher than what we saw in April of 24. I think if you think back, I think we have really great weather in April, and that probably drove to a lot of pathway usage. But anyway, just really great to see that. But this was an all-time record for us and the highest pathway usage that we had counted in a given month. Also, just wanted to take a moment to highlight the CROM4 coverage. A couple of weeks ago, CROM4 in San Francisco did a focus on transit segment. They highlighted the San Francisco Bay Ferry on Monday, BART on Tuesday, SMART on Wednesday, and Caltrain on Thursday. For the SMART piece, reporters rode the train during the AM and PM commute. They visited the Rail Operations Center, had an opportunity to speak with our new maintenance manager, and they had me in studio during the noon hour, which was great. Overall, I think it was great coverage and really showcased SMART to the Bay Area. As evidence, something that was very interesting is shortly after one of the segments played, customer service received a call from an individual from Berkeley asking for information about how to ride the SMART train. So the word's getting out, which was great to see. Also wanted to highlight Bike to Wherever Day on Thursday, May 15th. SMART joined forces with local agencies and community partners to host Bike to Wherever Day Energizer stations at Santa Rosa downtown and Larkspur. SMART also partnered with the Energizer stations at downtown Petaluma, Petaluma North, and Cotati stations. And all stations were well attended with enthusiastic participation from cyclists of all ages. So overall, just a really great day. And now the big news. It's almost time to open Windsor Station. Pre-revenue testing is underway. We've tested, everything went well yesterday. Things are going well so far today. Mark says yes. We have to get some paperwork signed off from the FRA to get everything finalized, but assuming everything goes good, we get the FRA to sign off. Our plan is to start picking up passengers in Windsor on Saturday. So, like I said, still got some work to do. We have the press release ready to go, but we have to get this paperwork done. And then our big grand opening celebration will be on Friday, June 13th at 1:45 p.m. You all know how many people showed up for the Petaluma North Station opening, at about 600 people. This is going to be a way bigger event than that. So we're just asking everybody, all those that are listening in the public, to RSVP on our website, to ask questions about how you're getting there, what trains you plan to take coming in, going out. That just gives us some information to make sure that everything is coordinated properly. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I just have one regarding all of us showing up. Do we have to, I know we have brownout restrictions. So do we need to announce that the COC will be there?
Follow up on that
Okay,
exactly, but
thank you. I'd like to-
that's something that happens. It just, because there's a lot of people there, it wouldn't be just everybody right together, but we'll get the detailed answer.
Because I would hope
on
that
that.
everybody want to share that joy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of local, very localized press around my area, people complaining about the horns. But then I also heard that Windsor had not really submitted their paperwork to the FRA in time. Is that correct or not?
So I don't know about on time. I know that they're still working through that process. It is the responsibility of the town
Yeah.
to do that. They're working through that process, and the last conversations that I've had with them, I know that they're trying to expedite that as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Go ahead, Emma.
So the opening of the Pengrove Bike Path was delayed. Do you have a date when that's going to happen?
We're still working through that. Is Bill back there? Bill's back there if I need some help here. We've ran into some issues with the signal systems working together with the county system. They're currently bench testing our equipment against theirs, but we've got to get those two things working together. It's kind of a complex problem because it doesn't happen all the time. It'd be much easier to solve. It's just kind of one of those intermittent type things where the lights start flashing from time to time. And so until we get that done, we can't officially open it. We do know that people are already out and about, but we can't officially open that until we get that issue resolved. But we are working directly with the county to get that done as quickly as possible.
So is it safe for people to be on that path now?
We're not open. I would recommend that people not be on there. We do know that some people are going around the cones and things and being out there, but until we get the crossings, we can't tell people that that's safe.
So I have a property that's right borders the track. And I can see that path like every day, and there's a lot of people
Mhm.
all week long. And about a week and a half ago, there was an accident with the motorcycle that went down right near the crossing at the same time that there was an emergency at the market. So it was kind of chaotic.
Hmm.
And I would just, you know, I wasn't clear on what to tell the downtown business that it's my understanding that SMART is not officially opened.
It's
and
not officially open, but we will communicate that just as soon as possible. We're working hard to get it done. We know people are excited to get that opened, and we're working to get to solve the problem. And, you know, if you've ever done any type of troubleshooting on electronics, once you find the problem, it's done, but sometimes finding that problem is the difficult part.
Okay.
Richard has a comment.
Hi, thanks so much. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I'm excited to see the growth of SMART. Like, again, I've been in Petaluma since 2011. So to see SMART from like not being much of anything at all to this sort of behemoth of an entity, I think is very exciting. But my question specifically is, where does SMART go after this? Like, I know we have this upcoming grand opening, but are
Mhm.
there any more stations planned or?
Hillsburg, and then we are planning to go all the way to Cloverdale.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Anybody else? At that point, we'll open it up to public comment.
First up for public comment on Zoom is Richard Brand.
Good afternoon, everybody. And hello, Eddie. You know me, Richard Brand from West Sonoma County. I am excited about this. I've been watching this Windsor extension for 5 years. Before your time, Eddie, and before my time, maybe, but I'll be there and it's exciting. I can hear the train horns from my property, and I assume that's the testing. And I also assume that's the DMUs. I'm hoping that you're going to test some freight locomotives too, and to try that gauntlet tracks that are going on. I think there's an issue that I find in the county is that almost nobody understands how freight trains operate and what they are and what's going on. And I would recommend that you do some training and maybe even hire somebody to train both the board and others about what freight trains do and how they operate. But I'm excited, I think, and I love to hear you say going to Healdsburg, a Linton station for transloading, hopefully, and then to Healdsburg. I'm sorry, to Cloverdale. So anyway, good job.
Seeing no other, we'll close public comment and go to my next favorite part, Heather McKillips.
Thank you. My name is Heather McKillop. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at SMART. Today, we're going to be doing the presentation of our draft fiscal year 25-26 budget. We did have a board workshop on May 8th. We did present a draft, the full budget draft that's in front of you today to the board for comment last week. And now we're here before you to present it to you and get any comments that you may receive. If you don't have any comments today, our comment period is still open through June 2nd. And Claire, who's here doing the presentation, will be covering that at the end. We are in kind of an informal environment for this, we feel, today. So if you have questions as we go along, sometimes it's easier to ask those when you think of them versus waiting till the very end, especially in a presentation that's kind of long. So we encourage you to do that if the chair's okay with that. So I'm going to introduce Claire Springer. She's our budget and finance manager, and she's going to be making the presentation today.
Hello, as Heather mentioned, my name is Claire Springer, and we're going to talk about our fiscal year 25-26 draft budget. So, and just so everybody's on the same page, our fiscal year starts July 1st of 2025 and will go through June 30th of 2026. So just for kind of a lay of the land, of what we're going to be discussing. We will start with our strategic plan and kind of link in how this budget goes towards our goals in the strategic plan and helps us advance those. We'll discuss our passenger rail and pathway and those goals related to ridership, pathway, and our extension. We will discuss our different projects, so non-capital, capital, and state of good repair. We'll discuss revenues, our fund balance and reserves, and then we'll go into freight. We'll talk about our goals, expenditures, so the expenditures around those goals, our revenues and our fund balance and reserves, and we will talk about our current projected changes to our draft budget as well. We have to prepare the draft as a point in time, and then it always happens that as soon as we do that, there are changes that come through, whether that's just additional information or we notice something that we want to adjust. So starting with our strategic plan and our smart house. So our smart house is kind of what guides us in everything we do. So it has a foundation, so our values of safety, integrity, stewardship, and continuous improvement. And then we have our pillars, which are ridership, pathway, extensions, and freight that hold up this smart house. And then our mission is we connect communities, and then our vision, smarter transportation for a smarter future. And that concept of our smart house guided our strategic plan, which is our strategic plan from 2025 to 2030. So those are throughout those 5 years, we created goals in the strategic plan that we would like to reach within that time. And so within this budget, we are advancing in those goals, and we will talk about how we're doing that. So breaking it down for ridership, our goals and expenditures. We are continuing our Youth and Seniors Ride Free program. We're undertaking preventative maintenance and state of good repair projects to maintain the safety, quality, and efficiency of SMART's rail system. We're maintaining compliance with all requirements and regulations. And for our first and last mile, we're collaborating with transit providers to improve our bus and ferry connections. And we continue to monitor the system as the year goes on and do what we can to adjust to meet the needs of riders. And our current ridership estimate for our fiscal year 26 budget is that 1,210,000 riders. And if you look at our expenditures, we have it broken out into the different projects, into kind of our overall administration and operations costs. And then we can go through and see the different items that are listed as qualifying as ridership costs and expenditures. So our next section is pathway. This is our pathway map. This currently has the extension to Windsor. It shows it open, but will be opening soon. And as we go into our pathway goals and expenditures, we plan to construct funded segments of the pathway, and these include the Hannah Ranch to Vintage Way segment, as well as Gurnville Road to Airport Boulevard and Joe Rodota to 3rd Street. And so those projects will start in this fiscal year 26, and some plan to be completed and others plan to continue into future fiscal years. We plan to complete our design and permitting of our pathway segments and continue our mitigation projects for pathway segments and maintain the pathway just generally as in a state of good repair, as well as complete our pathway wayfinding program that was started in past fiscal years. And so as you look here, you can also see how we split out everything under those different projects and the different design projects, the different construction projects, and just kind of see how we conceptualize that. So this is our extensions. So this is the current system map. We don't currently show Windsor open on this map, but we hope to, on our final presentation to the SMART board, we will have that open. So that will be very exciting. So for this fiscal year, we are finishing the development of the progressive design build, just the development portion of that project from Windsor to Healdsburg. We plan to award that contract at the end or in the probably in the fall of this next year. I believe the bids close June 30th of this year. So we also plan to install and implement our Petaluma North Station solar project and continue our East-West Rail activities, participation in those Highway 37 corridor activities, and work with our partners to incorporate rail into that project. And then we continue to mitigate our extension and station projects as required. I believe I mentioned that later, but those mitigation projects are often 5 to 10 year requirements. So we continue them every year. So for our revenues, this is a meaty slide. This is included in the actual draft budget. So if you need more information, but what the chart here is meant to show is all of the revenue sources and then kind of just give an idea of how much money we get from what sources. So we show our smart sales and use tax at 60%. That's our Measure Q funds. We also have federal funds and state funds that add in decent sized chunks to our budget, and other sources are 7%, regional funds are 1%. For expenditures. So when we talk about expenditures, salaries and benefits are the largest proportion of our operating budget. We have collective bargaining agreements that determine the increases of our unionized employees. Non-unionized employees have a cost of living increase of 3% in this budget. Medical benefits, we've noticed, have increased greatly. We're currently budgeting 15%. That's actually less than what we budgeted last year. There was a larger increase last year. We are, in this current budget, we have no new full-time equivalent FTE positions, but we do have 5 position upgrades, as well as 3 intern positions. And we did notice a reduction in our salaries and services budget as compared to our last fiscal year. This can be attributed to efforts that all of the different departments went to reduce, to really look at what they were spending and what needed to be budgeted based on actual spend amounts. We looked at fiscal year 24 and tried to do what we could to bring down those costs. And one of the developments was we were able to have a little bit of a baseline, given that we started pre-COVID and then we're just kind of getting our feet under us. And then with COVID, it was really hard to come up with an actual baseline of what our costs are. And so another effort or another advancement was our implementation of inventory for our vehicle maintenance department in fiscal year 25, and maintenance of way. We're establishing our inventory in this fiscal 26 year. That way we don't have to expense everything that we purchase. We purchase things and they go into inventory, and then as they're used, that's when we incur those costs. And additionally, we did have certain costs that increase every year, especially insurance costs, oil prices, just items that are outside of the control of our managers and their ability to adjust. And then we eliminated contingency amounts in different department budgets. So we have a centralized contingency for the agency. And then for project costs, we lined up our priorities through the strategic plan and through our capital plan with funding and evaluated based on whether they were included. And so overall costs were distributed between the pillars according to our allocation calculation. You kind of saw that in the past slides. So it's another meaty slide, but so administration costs are a larger percentage of them are supplies and services as opposed to our salaries. That's just has to do with a lot of costs that go into administration, just generally insurance and, you know, legal and all kinds of other costs that come through that administration budget.
Through the chair, could I ask a question?
Absolutely, Kevin.
Yeah, on page B, this is regarding the administrative costs, on page B-35, where you list out all the expenses, there's a miscellaneous expense category of $1 million. What is that?
I believe that that is our contingency.
Yes, that's correct. So when we mentioned we were taking all the contingencies from the individual departments and putting them into one, we put that under the miscellaneous category. And then that allows us to, as things come out through the year that are unanticipated, we have the ability to move that around within that budget.
You might want to just call it contingency, because when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, what the hell's that? But if contingency, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the only reason we don't do that is because there is a reserve called contingency. So it's our operating reserve and / contingency, but we can probably spell that out a bit better. We'll figure out a way to address that. Yes, thank you.
Just a related question. So you consolidate all the contingencies from the various departments. Was that number less after you consolidate, was that number less for the coming year than it was for the current year?
Yeah, so in the past, we've had this centralized contingency, but we also had individual contingencies that people were keeping in their own budgets. So let me give you an example. So for if there's a hazmat situation, we had a contingency in operations budget and for that hazmat contract. If some type of incident happened and we needed to call out the hazmat crews. So instead of putting the full contingency in there, we reduced that. And then we said we can rely on this contingency that we have from a central, from the central. So overall, the overall contingency shrunk, but the centralized contingency stayed the same. We just reduced the contingencies that were in the other various budgets that people were putting there to deal with these type of situations. Another example is like if, God forbid, we were have a derailing accident or something like that, right? So I hate to say that word out loud. He hates when I say, but we have the ability to get resources to re-rail those for those incidents. Well, rather than just carrying them in our operations budget and making that look inflated or larger than it would normally be, we took out that contingency and we just keep this centralized contingency there. So this particular line for miscellaneous is the same as it was last year. It's just the contingencies in the various other budgets have been reduced. So overall, the contingency amount has been lowered, if that makes sense.
Any other questions at this time?
How much of the contingency budgets, whether overall or each department, have been used in the past?
It really depends on the year and what's going on. So we have typically had money available in each of those budgets at the end of the year. So that's one of the things we looked at is for the last several years, we have typically overall had about $10 million remaining in all of our operations and administration budgets. So that's why we took a hard look at where we could reduce those. And so because that is money. If you spend too much in government, it's a bad thing. And if you have money left over, it's a bad thing, right? Because that's money that can't be deployed to use to do other things in the agency. And so the goal was to really reduce that. So at the end of the fiscal year, we came much closer to what we had been actually spending on average. And so that was the goal of making those reductions. And we felt we had enough contingency within this contingency that's under the administration or the GM's purview to be able to deal with something if it came up. So it has been minimal, luckily, fortunately, again, knock on something. I
Good
don't want to say
question.
that out loud because we've been fortunate in that area.
Okay, seeing none, please, Claire.
Okay. Equally as meaty, operations costs. So this, if you look at the proportion of, and the way that the costs are broken out for operations, it's kind of the opposite. So salaries make up a much larger, they make up 77% of the operations budget. And then the services and supplies are about 6,100 is what we're seeing for next fiscal year. But we have a lot of employees that are employed in the operation of our train. So that's how that breaks out.
And do you remember the amount that we reduced from this area, just as an example of what?
Right. So if you look at, so we have.
Oh, yeah, I see right there.
Almost 7 million was budgeted in fiscal year 25, and that's in our amended budget. So we, at our halfway point in the year, we will amend the budget to adjust for, current spending rates. So that, I believe, was amended down from the original amount. So we are about, 900, almost 800 and something thousand less in this fiscal year.
And I just wanted to say also on that, I mean, one of the things we're trying to encourage is for people to just spend what they need to spend to be able to get the job done, right? And so that involves some trust that we will be there for our operations folks if something comes up that's unexpected, right? So if they budget more frugally and something occurs that's unanticipated, we need to be able to react to that and to provide those funds to be able to address those issues. Otherwise, if we aren't able to do that, there will be that situation where they'll want to have all that money in their budget just in case something happens. And that is not uncommon here. It's everywhere I've worked. That's the tendency, right? You just want to be able to deal with it. So we really, as Claire mentioned, our operations as well as our administration budgets, our managers really took a hard look at that and identified areas where they felt that they could reduce their budgets at this time. And then if something were to occur that was outside of their control, we have a mechanism to be able to address that.
Matthew?
It looks like on contract services administrative, there's a big difference.
Right.
Can you-
So I can speak to that. So that is when Heather mentioned that we had maintained costs in there in FY25 that were related to kind of disaster planning, right? So we had funds, quite a bit of funds that were put aside for that. We call it encumbered, so they couldn't be spent elsewhere. And in our current FY20 or in our FY26 draft budget, what we looked at is what was utilized. So what do we need to keep in that for contracted services versus what was there for if something happened.
All right, seeing no more questions at this time. Claire, thank you.
Okay, so reserves, pension and other post-employment benefit liability reserve. So these are funding for future pension costs. We are adding $1 million from this fiscal year 26 budget, which will bring our total reserve to $6,574,676. Our vehicle and equipment reserve. So this is future funding for capital equipment, i.e. our DMUs, which are our trains. We're adding $1 million in fiscal year 26. The total reserve will be $12,317,250. Our corridor completion reserve, we are these were funds that were set aside for design or environmental work for our corridor, or to leverage for grant funds. We are utilizing 1.5 million in fiscal year 26 for a total reserve balance of $5,500,000. And then our operating reserve, we're maintaining this fund at the equivalent of 25% of our operating costs. So that required us adding $1.2 million in fiscal year 26 to maintain that 25% for a total reserve of $12,959,990. So projects. So this is just kind of another way that we slice what we spend into projects. And so some of these items you will have seen under previous goals or where we had it under pathway or ridership or extensions or yes. Environmental projects. So these are non-capital. All of these are non-capital, but under that are environmental projects. These are the mitigation projects that we mentioned earlier for our extensions and our pathway. And they have ongoing requirements once they're established for 5 to 10 years. So we have those split out and those mentioned in that table there. And then some of our other non-capital projects are items that we won't have a tangible asset at the end of this, but they're costs that we need to incur. So we have maintenance projects and we have our smart website that we're redoing, as well as our quality of life study belong in this category. And then we have project development and design costs that won't be capitalized. And we also have work for others that is being paid for by others, but it gets categorized in this area. Our project-specific capital costs, these projects listed here are tied to specific funding. So the first of which is the completion of the pathway wayfinding project. We have our pathway construction projects, Joe Rodoto Trail to 3rd Street in Santa Rosa, Hannah Ranch Road to Vintage Way in Novato, and Guerneville Road to Airport Boulevard in Santa Rosa. Additionally, we have that Petaluma North Station solar project, and then preliminary project costs for our Windsor to Healdsburg extension. And then the last item there is that Civic Center Kiss and Ride design.
Tom?
The solar project for Petaluma, is that a new project or is that going to be happening at the other stations as well?
So that is a specific grant that we received for the Petaluma project related to the affordable housing money we received. So it was part of a larger project associated with the Petaluma and the low-income housing that's going in there. At this time, we don't have plans on putting solar on the other stations because we don't have a funding source right now, but that doesn't rule out that we wouldn't be seeking grants or looking at it internally in the future.
So at the Petaluma station, you can do a cost benefit analysis when that's done, right? Take a look at.
That is correct. Yes, we have some preliminary information that shows that that project may be able to help us pay for the entire electric cost at that particular station. But until we put that project in, we won't know exactly what that looks like. So yes, we'll be able to glean a lot of good information from that project.
That's great. Thank you.
Please continue.
Sure. So our state of good repair projects. This refers to, there's several different, but this is a specific classification related to keeping our assets in a state of good repair. We have our St. Vincent's Culvert that's listed over here under bridges. And we have vehicle maintenance projects in this fiscal year 26 budget. So these are overhauls, modifications, light replacement, new cameras on board our trains, and fire suppression system updates. We also have maintenance of way projects for our guideway and track surfacing, pathway repairs and rehabilitation, and switches and battery banks. And under our capital administration and operations projects, these are IT projects. We have non-revenue vehicles listed here. Maintenance of way projects, including a fabric building for our scrubber storage, a backup generator, and under vehicle maintenance, an energy cushion device crash system, a car mover to move our trains, our DMUs within our yard, and digital wheel measurement gauge to help the vehicle maintenance department. Okay, so revenues versus expenses. One thing I'm going to mention in just a minute is the changes that we already know about. So that actually impacts this section here. One thing, when we put together this budget, we had one estimate of our sales tax funds for next year. And we went with that earlier version and a conservative estimate that they had. As we were putting this together and starting our presentations, they issued a new estimate that was actually $2 million higher. So in this draft budget, we're showing our sales tax funds at about $2 million less than what we are going to adjust them to be based on a more up-to-date estimate of our sales tax for next fiscal year. So when we look at how much of our fund balance we're going to be utilizing, that number is actually going to go down to about 5.9 million because of that Measure Q money and a couple other adjustments that we are finding out about in the meantime in federal funds and a couple other locations where money is just slightly shifting. When they, it's actually going up from what we thought it was going to be at first, but that estimate was a little bit old, and the what we're looking at now, we're still utilizing that conservative estimate because we kind of noted that there's some uncertainty in the world, and just we felt it might be prudent to use that conservative estimate instead. But the overall amount that it is going down is not very much from this current fiscal year's Measure Q funding. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So when we look at our forecast, Muni Services is who we contract with to do our forecasting for sales and use tax. They provide us a quarterly forecast based on actuals received in the past, as well as they use UCLA's and Moody's forecasting model. So for a while there, it was showing, as you probably heard in their surrounding cities and counties, everybody was seeing their sales tax go down. So we decided at that time to use the most conservative estimate that showed about, I believe it was like a $4 million to $5 million reduction from our current fiscal year collections. So we went with that number for the draft. We did receive an updated forecast that showed, as Claire mentioned, a few $1 million higher than what that original forecast showed. And our actual collections are reflecting that. We're just down slightly from where we were in our forecast for this year. So I think the new number will be more accurate than this lower number that we were using for this draft.
So is that based on the consumer confidence studies that just came out this week or in the last week?
No, actually, their forecast that came out a few weeks ago. I think it's based on the fact. So let's just be clear about they're trying to forecast what's going to happen with tariffs and other things, right? So which has been very volatile. So I think we're going to continue to see these forecasts go up and down as over the next year as things progress. So it kind of depends on when the forecast comes out, whether you're seeing a more optimistic or at least a less optimistic view of the world. But I think we're going to stay kind of right around where we have been. We did see that exponential growth in the budget. We have provided a chart of our growth in the past. There was exponentially high coming out of the pandemic. It then leveled off, and now we're seeing flat the last couple years, and I think we'll continue to see that going forward. As we know, we have net migration out here in Novato and Sonoma, but we tend to have a higher income area who tend to still spend on goods and services. I think the biggest change that we saw that everyone's seeing in the country is the movement from goods and services during the pandemic from goods and supplies to services, and services aren't taxed. So as we spend more money on going out and doing things like getting our hair done or doing, for me, my nails done, all those type of things that I now spend more money on than I did during the pandemic, those things aren't taxed. And I think you're seeing that not only in this area, but around the country. I think that's starting to balance out though. So that's why we're predicting we're going to see about the same and just a small decrease this year versus a larger one like this originally predicted.
Okay, we're going to move on into the freight budget. So for freight, our goals are to manage our maintenance requirements. Our fiscal year 26 budget includes funds to improve 3 different bridges. And we actually purchased those bridge timbers already. We have them currently, and they will be used on Novato Creek, the Sears Point drainage, and Wingo Sonoma Creek bridges. We're partnering to repair the Grandview Avenue grade crossing with Marin County. And then we will continue our railroad tie replacement to replace those ties that need to be replaced within the year. We're continuing to market freight and storage opportunities at SMART and leveraging those storage tracks that we have at Shelville and Burdell, and then promoting our transload opportunities at Shelville. So freight revenues. Freight has a few different state of California fund sources. So we received funds for this California Priority Legislative Budget projects for 2023 and 2024. So we're budgeting those in this fiscal year. We also have freight movement fees that we receive, leases, et cetera, et cetera. And so as you can see, it's kind of, it's a more diverse split for the freight budget. So when it comes to our expenditures, again, our main goals are just to keep the freight system going and keep it safe and efficient. And so a lot of our costs are related to just normal day-to-day operations and our salaries and benefits. And then we have the tie replacement project, our crossing repair project, and those bridges. And then kind of what I mentioned, the changes identified from our draft budget, that net difference is a little over $2 million. A lot of that is our Measure Q readjustment for our sales and use tax. Expenditures, we're going to adjust our state of good repair expenditures to account for slightly lower funding from that federal fund source. We plan to add additional funds to our marketing department. And then we are currently awaiting comments from the board, from the COC, and from the public. And so here is our calendar, what we have going forward for this budget. So May 21st, we presented the draft budget to our board of directors. Today on May 28th, we are presenting it to the COC. Then our public comment period closes on June 2nd. And then we present it to the board of directors for final approval on June 18th.
You were going to point out changes, I thought.
So that was that slide that I mentioned. We'll go back a couple. So changes identified.
Excuse me. Thank you.
So the main one is our revenues that I mentioned here. And then that it is largely our Measure Q funds making that difference.
Kevin?
Yes, I had a question and a comment. My question is my understanding is that the staff or the management can make changes in the budget through the year, providing that the total budget figure, those changes don't exceed the total budget figure. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So in our part of our enabling bylaw, what is the bylaw? Legislation, sorry. It allows the chief financial officer and the general manager to make those changes within the existing appropriation. So the funds have to be appropriated in the budget, and then we can move money around within that. We do that for small expenditures. If there's larger expenditures, we tend to bring those back to the board on a monthly basis. And you'll see we do these budget amendments every month, lately every month. And then once a year, we try to do a mid-year adjustment. And we bring all of those things forward, even the ones that we've made administratively. So we, like I said, I try to use discretion if I think that the board is going to want to know about something. I know even if it's a small topic or a small dollar amount, that it's a topic they want to know about, we err on the side of bringing that back to the board. But yes, we do have that ability to move those funds within the appropriation.
Great. And my comment is I just wanted to commend the staff for putting this budget together. It's a very comprehensive, I've seen a lot of budgets in my life. It's a very comprehensive document, and I think it's a very transparent document. In the past, not recently, but in the Smart Spin, there's been some questions about them hiding things. And I mean, this budget has salaries, it has fair recovery ratios, it has statistics. It's very transparent, and I think the public can't not be impressed with the work that you guys have done.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that. That is the goal. I mean, we feel that we owe it to the public. We're using public funds to let the public know where we're spending their funds.
And I would echo that praise. Thank you. Tom, and then Richard?
So, you show in the budget that ridership for 2026 is going to be 1.2 million, but ridership for 2025 looks to be about 1.2 million. Yet you've been increasing anywhere from 20 to 30% year over year or more.
Yeah, I think this comes down to being conservative, right? Because it's a financial piece of it. I think that we're going to finish the year 25, if I'm guessing correctly, probably at about 1.1 million. I don't think we'll get to quite to 1.2. So we got some room in there, but just like we did this year, I will likely come out with a stretch goal there of what that looks like. And we won't know what Windsor's truly going to look like until we open it and we see how many people start getting on there. I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised about Petaluma North. That exceeded my expectations. I expected a bump, but I didn't expect the bump that we got. And, we didn't know with that station opening, how many people from the east side were going to the west side. And so we weren't sure if we were going to pick up net new riders or if it were just going to be people that were getting on the other station. Turned out we picked up net new riders. So that was a good thing. So we'll just have to see what happens with Windsor, and then we'll adjust from there.
So what happens if the ridership goes up another 200,000 above the 1.2 million for next year? Is there incremental costs that would not be in the budget, or is that contingency?
No, what that would do is that's when I say being conservative, and Heather can correct me here, but that's looking at what potential fair revenue comes in. That's what's driving that number. And so just being conservative, making sure that we don't throw out one of my wild numbers and then banking the budget on that, right? So it's just more conservative, but that number would be driving basically of how we're calculating what we anticipate receiving in fair revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Richard?
I would add to that. The only time fair revenue would be the key thing. So it would generate more revenue, which would be a positive thing. The only incremental cost we could see is if we had specific overloading on a particular trip where we had to add three-car trains. But that cost is very small incremental amount versus adding additional service, like additional trips. So that's the difference. Yeah. But it would be a positive thing, but don't give any ideas about pushing it. No. He's always setting stretch goals.
Richard, you had a question.
Thank you. I agree. Excellent presentation.
Thank
We
you.
enjoyed it. So in my preparation for today's meeting, I've been looking at every YouTube video on SMART, right, which has really been very exciting for me. But one of the videos that caught my attention was one that was talking about the potential of SMART going along Highway 37. And I just wanted to ask if there was any validity in that.
Yes, I can speak to that. So yeah, we're currently kind of focused on planning and project development associated with that. We are a member of the Highway 37 committee, those who are looking at the highway improvements along that area. And so we're currently working towards that direction. There's a couple of things with that particular alignment. Number one, it's in the state rail plan. Number two, last year, maybe a year and a half ago, it got accepted into the FRA Corridor ID program, so it's recognized nationally. What that does is that opens up potential for future revenue sources and grant funding to help fund that. So we're continuing along that. It's a big project. It'll have a big number associated with it, but we are continuing to work towards developing that alignment.
Awesome. I'm sorry, just to sort of follow up. I think that's awesome. Is there a projected sort of timeline? Because on the newscast that I saw was like 10 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I can't throw out a number right now of a date. Right now, where we're at in the process is Caltrans Rail Division of Caltrans is doing a project study review. We'll get that data back. It'll look at different alignments. That'll, get public feedback, things of that nature. But with the FRA Corridor ID program, there's certain gates that you have to pass through, right? And so they give you money to do a certain component, and then you move to the next stage and the next stage. So it's going to take some time to get through that. And I don't think anything that, if I threw out a date, it would just be a guess. So I think we'll hold on that till we have more information.
That's cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good questions, anybody? Everybody? Emma, do you have a question? No. Thank you, Richard. And I think that's concludes. Oh, we have to have public comment. Do we have any hands up with public comment?
At this time, we have one hand raised for public comment. Richard Brand.
Sorry about unmute is never right where it should be on Zoom. Anyway, again, Richard Brand, West County, and also I want people to know that I am the chair of the Friends of Smart Freight Group, subgroup. It's a group that studies and hopefully helps you with the planning for freight. I do have one question. Either Heather or Claire, you said the bidding and award for the project to Healdsburg was going to be awarded next year. So,
Do you want me to respond to that, Madam Chair?
Okay, because I'm going to run out of time. And also, we've had done several studies on customers for freight north of the airport, and actually talked to lumber yards up there. And that's why we're interested in the state. They don't want to give away their options to ship via truck. But if the if the railroad's going to come up there, then they'll be ready to talk. This is a marketing issue. And Clara, you've seen the note from my group about what we see. I think a lot of the report in this study is tactical. And I would like to see the draft budget get more strategic. After all, that is the domain and the responsibility of this particular group. Citizens oversight is strategic, not tactical. And so, Eddie, I think you need to put some time into thinking about strategically, what are you going to do about freight? And how can we help you? Because we got a group of people that know trains, understand how freight is. And I know that John is busy because he's got things to do, but just dealing with ties as opposed to shipping outbound versus inbound. I'm doing a little sermon here because I think this is a very important thing for the draft budget. If we wait another year, then we're going to be out of time and the business is going to be gone because we're broke per Proposition Q. So I'm just saying we're ready to help, but we want to see and hear more about strategic planning for freight. I'll rest my case there. Thank you.
Richard. Any other comments?
Madam
Please,
Chair, do you
Heather.
want me to respond to that? I can respond to the first part of that regarding the RFP. So we released an RFP for the phase 1 work to Healdsburg. We went out with a progressive design build package. It's the first one we've done that way. And so the phase 1 work, which is consists of design and preparing various package for construction, is due on June 30th. We expect to award to the best bidder, most responsive bidder in the fall of this year in 2025.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thomas? Tom?
Is there any news on the sales tax extension process and?
No, not at this time. You probably know we presented to the board, and laid out a full text measure and a draft expenditure plan that we talked through. But, some feedback came in from the public as well as our board. So we're just continuing to work towards that, but no real update at this time.
Thank you. I also want to thank you for your presentation. Oh, Heather.
I was just going to remind everybody, again, comments period is open until June 2nd. So if you think of anything that you want to share in your packet is Claire's information. So you can email that to her or call her and we'll be glad to take that. We do present any comments we received to the board of directors and we let them know whether we've incorporated that or not into the actual budget. So you'll see that as part of the presentation to the board in June. So we encourage anybody to do that.
So I'll be making a presentation at the board meeting regarding our meeting here. And if nobody objects, I'm going to recommend that the board accept the draft 2025-26 fiscal year budget. Any objections? All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes our meeting. The next meeting in the Citizens Oversight is September 24th at 1:30, also right here. I just want to commend everybody's hard work and congratulations. And I know we're looking forward to the future. So thank you all for your participation. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if I can't answer it, I know who can. All right. So that concludes this meeting. Thank you. Oh, do I need a motion to adjourn? Anybody opposed? Okay.